Welcome back to another episode of the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast. My name is Casey Taylor, and in today's episode, we are talking about results in the last few years that we've obtained personally in the portfolio, but also for clients. And the capital growth rates on these scenarios for a couple of clients is between 55 and 60% capital growth in just 3 years. Couple of clients we're talking about today, we have made Sakia $500,000 for one client and $450,000 for the second client. And this is two purchases made in 2022. We're going to be talking about the environment at the time, what the Reserve Bank was doing with increasing rates, and really showcasing that getting into the marketplace, not listening to the noise is super important, because right now, there is going to be a property boom taking place, and getting in and taking action is imperative to be able to change your financial future, but also not cost yourself massively. Because I'm going to go to some scenarios today as well. People who have sat on the fence, not done anything, and they have missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital growth, which ultimately is going to either allow you to retire early or not. And that's what we're going to get into now. So let's just get straight into some numbers. Now, these first clients, we secured two properties in 2022. Now, this individual client was not super established in terms of, they're not 40 years old. They were late 20s at the time. And they were very motivated to get in and make a couple of purchases. Now, we sourced two properties at the same time for this client. Now, the first property was a Queensland purchase in Brisbane, and we secured that property off market for $476,000. That was exclusive to TPW with one of the agents that we work with. Now, that RP data is sitting at $725,000. It'd probably sell more if we take it to the market, but that is $249,000 growth, or 52% in 3 years, settled in, I believe it was July 2022. So that is a massive amount of capital growth. Now, there was people in 2022 going, fuck, should I buy, should I not? They sat on their hands, and this is the sort of performance that they've missed out on. Now, when we're talking to clients, we are projecting a conservative 5% capital growth rate, your property doubling in 15 years. But imagine getting these results in just that short period of time that really gets that performance. And this is where it's so important, because it sets you up into more purchases. And I'll talk about an example that I personally made that allowed me to go into another property. Second purchase, now this was purchased on market. This was an Adelaide purchase for $429,500. Now, just the RP data is sitting at $685,000, which is $255,000 growth, or 59.48%. All right, pretty much 60%. Now, that is a massive return. So in just 3 years for this client, they have made $504,000 in capital growth, choosing to work with Tailored Property Wealth, choosing to go out there and take action and invest in their future. Now, what would it mean if you had the borrowing capacity to make those two purchases work 3 years ago, you didn't purchase, and now you're thinking of doing it again? That is a massive amount of capital growth that you've missed out on. Massive wealth generation. Now, our client, the return on investment, what they invested with TPW based on that $504,000 was 15.75% greater than the investment with Tailored Property Wealth. So everyone wants to get caught up in what it's going to cost to purchase the property, the stamp duty, what it's going to cost to leverage a professional. But then 3 years later, our client has made $500,000 capital growth. That's not even talking about the rental income growth and it increasing over time and reducing those holding costs as well. So $504,000 for our first client who was aggressive, got in and took action. Second client, another two purchases made in 2022. Now, these clients, they were in their mid to late 20s. I won't give too much detail just for privacy reasons. However, they made a purchase, $485,000. It was off market, exclusive to TPW again, in the Brisbane property market, and is now worth $735,000, which is $250,000 growth, or 51%. Now, we went and secured one property first, and then a couple of months later, they were ready to go again. Now, their borrowing capacity was a little lower than the first time, and we were able to secure a property for $430,000 again in the Brisbane property market. And this property was online, and I moved extremely quickly on this one. The clients moved extremely quickly. They didn't overthink. They trusted the process, and we secured that one within a couple of hours of it going online and before the open home on the weekend where the price point would have blew out. Now, the RP data alone is $630K for this one. If it went to market, it would go a lot higher than that. But we're just going to work off RP data numbers, be conservative. $200,000 growth, or 46%. And that was secured late December 2022. So in less than 3 years, our client has generated $450K capital growth. Now, that is 14 times greater the investment with TPW. So 2 clients, 2 purchases in 3 years have made significant capital growth. Now, before I go on to the next couple of results, I really want to break down what was going on in the marketplace at the time, because we were in an interest rate rising cycle. Now, that shifted and started, it was in May 2022, where rates began to creep up from that historic low of 0.1%. Now, everyone started freaking out because it was going to get more expensive, but looking at it long term, interest rates were still extremely affordable. We then saw an increase in June, July, August, September, October, and November. Some of those were 0.5% increases for August and September, as well as July and June, I should say. So there was a massive increase. Everyone was freaking out. I'm not going to take action. Yet we had clients going and taking action, and in just 3 years have received some incredible capital growth results. And they've now got that equity to go out and purchase more and more property. And this is how you build wealth. Everyone wants to go out and chase a high yield. They buy a shitty unit in a regional location and it does nothing. It's paying them $20 a week. That is not how you build wealth. Building wealth is the capital growth component, increasing your net wealth base year on year. And you're able to do that through capital growth. So don't get caught up in all this negative sentiment. There's always going to be negative sentiment out there. And this is leading into the next example and next purchase, which I personally made. At the time, we had a client who I presented this property to. They said no. It was a little bit too much maintenance. With the current tenants, there was a little bit to do. And they ultimately decided not to purchase because of the environment. And that was because they listened to a family member. That family member only owned their owner-occupied purchase. Now, they took the advice of that family member, didn't buy, and they've now missed out on massive capital growth of 60%. I bought this property off market, $500K, and the valuation on this property now is $800,000. And what I have done last year is cash out equity from that purchase because of the growth. And I purchased another property last year. And this is how one property leads to another property and leads to more and more growth, more and more wealth building. Sit on the fence and you miss out. That is as simple as it gets. If you listen to family and friends who are not in the position you want to be in, it is going to be so costly. That's just a prime example of getting in, taking the action, and reaping the rewards. Don't listen to all that noise out there. One more client purchase that we helped them with in 2022, we bought for $507,500, exclusively off market. Now, this property, RP data is now $800,000, which is $292,500, or 57%. our clients were able to generate a return on investment of 18.28 times the fee of working with Tailored Property Wealth. Massive capital growth. So this is the power of getting in and taking action. All these people sitting on the fence, deciding if now's the right time. Property prices are going to crash. It's too expensive. Property continues to increase in value. If you know the right locations, right now, this same performance we have achieved for other clients is going to be achieved over the years to come, purchasing well in the right locations. There is a boom coming and you need to get in, because otherwise in 5 years' time, prices are going to be far higher than they are today, and you're going to miss out on building wealth, building financial freedom for your family. Nice quick one today on some results. I hope you have seen some value in this and how costly it is to sit on your hands and not take action. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.